Record. All right, everybody, welcome. You are here for How to Network in an Uncertain Market. My name is Albert Chen. I'm the founder of Albert's List, and I will be your co-host today. Albert's List is an organization focused on helping you gain job search skills, AI skills, and side hustle skills so that you can be free in your career in whichever way you choose and want to be. With me today is my co-host and my guest, Mark Sackett. He's someone I've known for, gosh, I think at least 11 years now. He's the founder of the Art of
Yeah.
Active Networking, which he describes, and I can describe too, as the ultimate worldwide experience that teaches you a different way to network. And he's also the owner of 13 other businesses, which he can talk to a little bit about today. And the aim of today's little chat between us is this. It's being recorded, and what we're going to be doing this is sort of like podcast style. So I've got some questions in mind. Mark has got some answers, and we're going to talk a little bit about networking in what has become a very unusual job market. I think unusual may be the right word to say it because we haven't seen something like this in a quick bit. And people, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area, who are in the tech scene, and if you're in the tech scene in general, are struggling. And so we're going to talk about how you can network, different ways to be creative, different ways to really figure out how to do all of this. And Mark is uniquely qualified because he does so much networking and has run so many businesses over the years and has different ways of wanting to help people. So, Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Always good to
Yes.
see you. Now that you don't live locally anymore, then I've hardly ever see you, but I feel like now we're seeing each other more than we did for the last 5 years. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic threw a little doozy into everything and it's and when I'm in the Bay Area, I love showing up to the Art of Active Networking because it's kind of where I got started for myself back in the day when I was figuring it all out, right? And showing up to your events and asking everybody, what do you do? Thinking like I was a champ. But before we get into that, can you just so everybody knows a little bit about you, can you tell everyone about yourself?
Well, I'm old. I moved to San Francisco in 1988. I'm primarily known as a graphic designer, art director, and filmmaker and musician. Um, I moved to San Francisco from Kansas City because I wanted to move to the most competitive creative market on the planet. And at the time, that was San Francisco. And I wanted to also be at the bottom of a very tall ladder. I mean, I wanted to have endless possibilities above me. When I moved to San Francisco, I knew absolutely no one. I have a pretty big mouth and I show up for stuff. And I think that's one of the primary rules of networking is just show up. I mean, most people are like, they don't show up, they don't talk to people properly, they don't know how to have the conversations, they're shy. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But for me, it was I saw this opportunity and I was passionate about my career. Um, it wasn't until 4 years after I moved here that I started my business in 1990. I started my second business in 1994. And they're all sort of related. I work in film and music and entertainment and concert production and events. I'm sitting in my event space and my events venue and studios in San Francisco. And then I'm writing a book right now called Curiosity Thrilled the Cat. And it's a story of my life, a story of what it's like to live a creative life and to kind of encourage anybody that wants to live a creative life that they can do so. And for me, it's always been about just that, living a creative life and approaching every project that I do, every client that I meet, every person that I meet creatively. I call it left of center thinking. And then I started doing speeches. I was invited to speak at conferences, and then that grew into brain food and some of the other stuff. But basically, I have always been wired in such a way that when I see something that I love or that I'm curious about, I'm like, oh, I maybe I can do that. And so, like on our first film, I mean, it was an $850,000 film. I had never been on a film set before, and I ended up doing all the marketing for the film and ended up buying part of the studio because they wanted me to be a partner. And that movie blew up and did about 6 million at the box office. And then we did our second film, and it was even bigger. And then I started my own film studio and I did my own film. So, I was more like I had directed television commercials, and I was like, well, for me, And and I always approach stuff very naively. I'm like, well, I don't know. That looks fun. I'll do that. So, I don't look at things like most people do. I don't say, boy, am I going to kill on that? I'm going to make a lot of money at that. I don't look at things and say, boy, I'm going to screw that person and I can do it better than they can. I don't have that kind of vindictiveness in my body. I don't have that kind of I mean, I'm competitive, I guess, but I'm creative competitive, which means that I want everybody to do well, everybody to rise up, everybody to thrive. I think that rising waters, or whatever that quote is, rising waters, rising tide, sweeps everybody along, and I think that that's what I prefer to do. And then it was about what 18 years ago now that I was watching how people were having conversations, and I started this thing called the Art of Active Networking. And then I was invited to do a TED Talk, and I did my TED Talk, and it blew up. And now I've done it for, I don't know, 30,000 people in 17 cities and 5 different countries. So, I'm still a designer, I'm still a producer, I'm still a director, I still do all these things. But for me, it's about what's the creative project or projects in front of me, and how do I execute those to the absolute best of my ability. And it'd be nice if they made more money, but sometimes they don't.
I mean,
But
right, you could make $300,000 at Facebook, like, you were talking about several months ago, right?
yeah, we
The
did this.
wildness of
Yeah.
that.
What was the name of that? What was the thing we did? It was how people in tech interested in leaving tech.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
uh
that
it
was
was the
basically
career transition conference. So just to
okay.
give a little bit of context, I was on a panel with Mark, or I had Mark on a
So
panel back in
you
November.
hosted it, yeah.
And it was a career transition conference, and the question was, is it time to quit tech? Because as many of you, and if you have been laid off from tech, hit thumbs up, tell us yes in the webinar chat, because we'd love to know. And we were asking whether it was time to go and do uh, you know, your skilled labor jobs, or to go work in a nonprofit, or go do something. And
Maybe to follow your passion.
yeah, right, right. And so is it time to go follow your passion if, working in tech is not following your passion? And somebody had mentioned to you that they were making like $300,000 and they wouldn't take a job that, was any less than that, right? Or something of the sort.
So what happened is I also have the largest antique advertising store in the world on the ground floor. I'm sitting on the ceiling of it here on the third floor. And this guy came in. It was about a week after we did that. And I always talk to everybody that comes into the store. I happened to be down there that day. And I said, "Oh, what brought you in?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I guess I just needed a dose of creativity." And I'm like, "Oh, I love that." And then I said, "Where do you work?" And he goes, "Oh, I work at Meta." And I'm like, "Oh, interesting." I said, I just spoke at a conference and there were some people from Meta there. And the conference was about people in tech interested in leaving tech. And, I think that when we started the money conversation, everybody was like, we can't leave tech. The golden handcuffs are on. And I was just like, so I asked him, I said, so roughly, how much do you make? And he's like, I make a lot. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, do you make more than $150,000 a year? And he's like, oh yeah. And I said, do you make more than $200,000 a year? And he's like, yes. And I said, more than $250,000 a year? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So, I mean, this guy's like 28 years old. And I'm like, what? I mean, and I said, so it turns out he was making just shy of $300,000 a year. I don't know what the hell he does, some kind of engineer, software engineer or something. And I'm like, I haven't made $300,000 a year in all of my companies combined ever in my entire life. And so I was like, shit, maybe I need to be in tech. But I also know that it would kill my soul. For me, I mean, that's no diss to anybody here in tech, because I'm sure there are a lot of people. It was more about, and what I speak about is following your passion, always following your passion. What do you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you love it? Can you make money from it? Can you make enough money to thrive and survive, or not? But I mean, I can't imagine, and I guess maybe I'm in a privileged position. I don't make very much money anymore post pandemic, but I still own my building and I still own my businesses, and I did not lay. I'm adamant that I'm never going to lay off my people. I have a small staff of 3 people, and I'm not going to lay them off. And I use a lot of my retirement to keep them during the pandemic. because I'm not going to treat my employees the way I was treated when I was coming up. And I mean, right or wrong, I mean, I don't care if business consultant looks at me and says, that you're doing that wrong. I care that I can sleep at night knowing that I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing the right thing by the people around me. And so, he and I had this great conversation, and I was just like, good freaking God. Like I clearly need to be in maybe a different business, or I don't know. But I also wake up every morning happy and satisfied and creatively satiated by what I get to do, you
Yeah.
know?
So
And
let's talk a little bit about the art of active networking.
mhm.
Everybody came here to learn how to network in an uncertain market. So tell us a little bit about, I think you mentioned how you started the art of active networking, but what is that whole foundation built on, right? Because there's lots of networking events you can attend in San Francisco on any given night, but you have a unique approach to networking that I've
Yeah.
experienced that many others have. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I believe okay, let me think about how to start this. When you meet someone, what is typically at a networking event, what's the first question that they asked you?
And let's throw this to the audience. What's the first question that somebody
What's the
asks
first
you?
question you ask or you get asked when you go to a networking event? Type it in the comments.
Just like that.
I can't see it. Did somebody say
Your
something?
name. Okay. Somebody says your name. All right.
Yeah, very few people say, yeah, there we go. What do you
How are
do?
you
What do you
doing?
do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do for a
And
living? Very
and so
few
is that the right way to say hello to
No,
somebody at a networking event?
very few people ever ask your name. They walk up to you and they say, "What do you do for a living?" Now, I experience that. I still experience it when I go to networking events, and I say, "What I do for a living doesn't matter," because that is a sorting question. That's the crux of my TED Talk, is that if I say, "What do you do for a living?" it means that I'm trying to sort you into I need to talk to you or I don't need to talk to you pile. Okay. Now, let's just take me, for instance. I'm going to guess that most of the people on this webinar are in tech. Is that fair to say? Some aspect of tech?
If you're
Uh,
willing to type in what it is that you do,
I
I
mean,
know
but
now
I'm
that we've
but I'm
asked
going to
that
guess
question,
you're
put
in
it in
you're
the
in
chat.
some
Yeah.
kind of you're in some aspect of tech. I'm going to guess.
I
Okay.
see
Now,
healthcare, biz dev, biotech, pharma, HR, underwriter, digital health.
okay. So a lot of healthcare. All right.
Yep.
And do any of you if you use a traditional networking methodology, are you going to
Nonprofit.
say, well, this guy
Graphic
works
design, trying to pivot to
graphic
the
design
US.
and film and entertainment and all that. And I'm like, I don't need that. That's not what I'm trying to get a job in healthcare. I'm trying to get a job as an engineer. I've got my master's or my PhD or my whatever's in this. And what would be your biggest mistake in not talking to me at this event? Because you've now learned perhaps what I do for a living. What would be the biggest mistake? Because most people, when I say what I do for a living, or when you go to a networking event, you say what you do for a living, if it's what they don't want to hear, they're like, well, it was nice to meet you. And they are looking over your shoulder for the next target. Okay. And who can I talk to that I can sell my stuff to or that I can sell myself to? That's your first mistake in networking is stop selling. The better question is, why are you here tonight? Or how can I help you do better? What is it you're looking for that I might be able to help you with? What are you struggling with? How might I be able to help? And these are the questions that we ask at the Art of Active Networking because we know that it doesn't matter what you do for a living. So go back what I said earlier, if you walk away from me, and this is not coming from any kind of an arrogant point, it's coming from fact. If you walk away from me, you are walking away from a network of over 250,000 people in my network. Now, if I already am of a mind and a heart that I want to help you in some way, if I can, and I can't help everybody, but if I'm of a mindset that I want to help the people that I meet, wouldn't 250,000 people be advantageous to you? I mean, I'm one of the 100 most connected people in the world on LinkedIn. I have 3 meetup groups that have over 12, 15,000 people in them. I have my own personal database that has, I don't know, 150,000 people across my businesses. I'm on stage 32. I've got 29 Facebook pages, although I don't know that anybody uses Facebook anymore. I've got 9 Instagram accounts. My three primary Instagram accounts have over almost 40,000 people on them. So, and I'm constantly using these tools now, right? And if you're asking me what I do for a living, okay, that's a complicated question. And it's not going to be an answer that you're expecting. And it's not going to probably be an answer that you want to hear. Now, if you're of the right mindset, you might get something out of that. And we might be able to have a cool conversation about what you're struggling with, what I'm struggling with. Of course, I mean, I will tell you, I don't know anybody on here, I don't think. I haven't recognized a single name on here, but I'm going to tell you that all of us have one thing in common, other than that we're human. And that is that every single person that's listening right now struggles with something. Make a comment if you don't have a single struggle in your life. I
I'd
don't
love
think
to see
anybody's
it.
going to comment, right? Everybody has a struggle. You have health struggles, relationship struggles, money struggles, job struggles, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So we all struggle. So what if the paradigm could shift to how can I help you do better right now? And that's what I do at the Art of Active Networking. And you have to answer 4 questions. We have a whole format. Everybody gets to speak in front of the entire room for 30 seconds. It's a 30-second format so that people don't go off, as I often do, onto some tangent talking about whatever, because I like to talk, right?
And we have a
But
really great follow-up question from that too.
yeah,
And Bennett says, Mark, you're a natural networker in the business of networking, but do you still get anxious before networking events? For those who are introverted or even ambiverted, networking can trigger intense anxiety. How do you overcome it?
I've never had it. But what I will say is,
But people, right, they ask
literally,
like the
what
what do you do
people,
question
right? When
because they,
people come to my events. I mean, we've had 30,000 people come to my events, and I always say, if you're an introvert, if you're shy, you've been here when I've done this. I say, if
hmm
you're introvert or you're shy or you're uncomfortable in any way, come and sit next to me, or go sit next to Albert, and we will make sure that you meet every single person in the room.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not an expert on anxiety. I'm not an expert on what an introvert is. I'm not an expert on those kinds of things, but I will say, go find people are generally shy and timid and apprehensive when they think that they have no value.
I
Okay.
mean, that was me when I met you 10 years ago.
Yeah,
You know how I was stiff like a gust of wind could blow me over, right? And so
I remember.
obviously things have changed since then, but it's like, yeah, I understand what it means to be super shy, super anxious. And in the 30 seconds that somebody is at your event where they stand up and they have to answer your 4 questions, it can be really nerve-wracking, right?
I think it can be, but I try to make everybody feel comfortable, and I know that
Yeah.
I can see when somebody's nervous, and I'll interrupt them. I'm like, "Are you nervous?" And here, this is the problem that we don't want to. I mean, we've been taught since we were in diapers to um, be careful, to hold our emotions in, to not reveal things, right?
hmm
Not to not necessarily, I don't know, don't be authentic, don't be honest, don't be creative, don't be different, don't be weird, don't be gay, don't be whatever.
And you
Okay.
remember, right? We grew up being told not to go talk to strangers, and here we are at a networking
Don't talk to
event.
strangers. Yeah. And here we are talking to strangers. I don't know, like, I mean, during the pandemic, I used to, whenever I was doing a Zoom call during the pandemic, and I'm like, I dare any of you to stand up because I want to know who doesn't have pants on, you know? But it's the same kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing that we're talking about here, which is how do you, it goes to the other stuff that I talk about, which is personal brand. How do
Yeah.
you want to show up in the world? How do you want to be perceived? What do you want to reveal about yourself? And
hmm
I mean, I'm like, how many times have you seen me cry at my own events?
I
I mean,
think every event you cry about
well,
something.
I mean, I often cry, but like, yeah, I am moved by the people's stories, people who've come.
hmm
I am moved by hearing someone who has not found a job for a year. I am moved to hear that somebody is going through a divorce or they've got a life-threatening illness or whatever. I mean, and you remember Carl,
hmm
Potow, Carl was supposed to be coming this coming Monday night, but he just had eye surgery, because he had brain cancer, and he just had eye surgery to correct his lazy eye. And he wouldn't mind me saying that in front of all these people because he is authentic and he shows up for people and he shows
Yeah.
up as much as anybody that I know right now. And I love that guy because he and I have gotten to, we've gotten to know each other over the years and we've gotten to go have these beautiful lunches. And, you can't go to a networking event and expect to know someone, if that makes sense.
I agree.
But
Yeah.
you can go to a networking event and meet people. And then the crucial thing is, do you follow up with them? And
Hmm.
90% of people, if we were, let's just assume that right now we're in a networking event. Basically, we kind of are, right? All right. So we're in a networking event right now, and I'm going to guarantee you that I don't know how many people. You know how many people are in the room right now?
We have 53 people in the room
Okay.
plus the two
Of the
of us.
53, two or three of us probably will send me a LinkedIn invite because they think I'm going to somehow give them access to all my LinkedIn connections, which I will. That's fine. I don't care. But they're not going to follow up with me directly, or they're going to say, "Oh, I was on Albert's seminar. Thanks for the information." And that'll be the end of it. There won't be any attempt at building a relationship with most of the people in this room because they don't care. They don't want to put the effort in and they're not going to get the results that they want. And the same goes for when they're trying to find a job. Do you know how I've interviewed and hired over, well, I've interviewed over 400, 400 or 500 people in my life. I've hired over 200 people across all my different businesses in my life. And um, you would be shocked that out of the 200 hires, even the 200 hires, how many of those people did not even research me or my companies before the interview, right?
So just going back to the previous thought,
Yeah,
you just challenged a room of 54 people whom have your LinkedIn profile, that they, beyond that of just saying that they heard you on my webinar, won't say anything more to you.
probably
So
won't.
for all the attendees in this room
Or they're
tonight,
going to ask for something. They're going to say, "Can you connect me for this? I'm looking for a job in this." And it's like, you're back to what can I get, not what can I give. And I'm all about what can you do for me? If I do something nice for you today, you will remember me for the rest of your life. If I try to sell you on who I am, you won't remember me until we hang up this or disconnect from this seminar. And
so
that's the same way at a networking.
to everybody's here, if that challenges you, I've just dropped in Mark's LinkedIn. I'm going to tell all of you to connect with Mark today, and it's going to be in the YouTube description as well. And I'm going to encourage you to send him something beyond thanking him for the contents of today's webinar. Mark is a graphic designer, he's a filmmaker, he owns a wonderful antique shop that I've bought from, and I have some newspapers that are wonderfully old and very poignant about who we are as human beings. And beyond that. So
I
get to
own
know
I'm
Mark.
sitting in my event space. I own events and meeting spaces, and I
Yeah, I
own.
mean, show everybody your table right now.
Well, I'm at the largest, oldest dining and meeting table in the United States. I don't think you can see it very well, but and all the chairs have been removed because Saturday and Sunday we've got our next big monthly art fair here. So we do an art fair to help artists. And these are 339-year-old village gate doors from China, from the Shandong province of China. I made them 28 years ago when I bought the building. But and then we do these art fairs to help artists because our boy, artists I have, they're harder at this conversation than even people in tech. Like they do artists like there's a different wiring. They're like they don't know how to have conversations. They're insular people. They very much focus on their art and their creating and their making of things, and less on the knowing and the selling and the doing of it. And
Mhm.
so we're doing these monthly art fairs because I really want to help more artists to do better, especially in a post-pandemic world. I mean, everything we do is in a post-pandemic world where nothing is as it was.
Yeah.
And you talk about challenging, people can say, yes, you can connect with me, and yes, you'll have access to a whole bunch of people. But if you start spamming me or just try to sell me something, you're just going to get a block because I haven't got time for it. And I don't have it's not in my nature or my makeup. And I'm not saying do something nice for me. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying when you go to a networking event, try to do something nice for somebody else.
Yep.
Try to say, what are you struggling with and how can I help? I call it my give four. Give to people 4 hours a week in 4 ways to help them do better. And that's the ultimate way to network. I've met some of my best friends on planes and in restaurants, two in Starbucks lines, because I turn around and talk to people. But my give four is give 4 hours a week in 4 ways. Give of your ideas and your talent freely, give of your time, volunteer, give of your money, donate. And that's a tough one for people because nobody ever has enough money. They can't give it away. and then give of your network referrals. And network referrals is critical because we network with people. If I introduce somebody here to somebody else, I am invoking what I call know, like, and trust, right? If I introduce you to Albert on LinkedIn and you're not connected to Albert, I'm going to say, I know Albert. I'm going to refer you, tell them that Mark Sackett referred you. And Albert will accept that connection first because I referred you to him. Does that make sense? And that's no. Now it's up to you. You got to make sure he likes you and you got to make sure he trusts you. Because if all three of those things aren't there, we aren't going to work together. You're not going to work together. The connection's not going to go anywhere. So know, like, and trust, all three have to be there for any relationship to move forward, professionally or personally, if
Yeah.
that makes sense to people. And so we don't understand that. We're just like, we're too focused on, I'm unemployed. I want to get a job. I want to get a job at Meta. I'm going to interview at Meta. But what research are you doing on Meta, on them, on the hiring practices, on the culture of the company? Is it even a company you want to work for? I don't know. I wouldn't. But other people want to work there because the ultimate driver, I think, mistakenly, is money. Now, I know a lot of people here who would do just fine on $100,000 to $125,000 a year. And that's still
Although
more.
you do know that in the Bay Area, $100,000 a year in some of these counties is now considered low income.
I know it is, but what I'm saying is
Wild.
you can live on it.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to choose how you want to live. I get that. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is $100,000 is more than 90% of the world makes.
Hmm.
So we're definitely in a bubble. We're definitely skewed. I get that. But I mean, if you can't live on $100,000, something's wrong. Okay. And certainly if you can't live on $150,000, then something might be wrong. And if we go back to my friend that I spoke to, if you can't live on $300,000, then I don't know, shoot me in the head because I'll give me half of it. I'll show you how to live double the life on half the money because we're just skewed, you know? And I think that the tech universe, especially founders, I mean, don't get me caught up on founder syndrome and entrepreneurship and all that bullshit. Because, by the way, somebody in here said, I want to be an entrepreneur. I saw it a little while ago. I want to
That's
be
why I want to be an
I
entrepreneur
want
as
to be
well
an
as an artist.
entrepreneur as well as an artist. I would challenge whoever, Sophia, I guess it is. Does anybody here want to be an entrepreneur? Why would you aspire to be an entrepreneur? I mean, they teach entrepreneurship at USC to get a master's degree in entrepreneurship. I don't know what that is. It's a bullshit degree so that they can make money because being an entrepreneur is simply, I don't call myself an entrepreneur and I hate the word. I think an entrepreneur is somebody who just works for themselves, loves what they do, and enjoys it every day and happens to make money at it. But you don't aspire to be an entrepreneur. You aspire to be an XYZ and you get really good at that. There's a big difference there because you can't just say, I want to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur doing what? You know,
Yeah.
you
Doing
know,
what? That's the most
I mean,
important part there.
it's a critical thing. So it's like, you know, you've heard me speak for years about what is your passionate purpose? Where do you put your stake in the ground in the world? What is it that you want for your life? What is it that you want 5 years from now? I don't know if anybody here, I brought this purposefully to talk to everybody. This is my nutty one, but I have this journal. I keep these journals. I write everything in here. It's with me all the time, almost no matter where I am in the world, this thing's in my hand. And I put stickers on it. My friend Shepard Ferry sends me stickers and I stick them on there. And I put stickers on it and I make divider pages and I turn it into a piece of art. And I make all these notes about things that I want to achieve and things that I want to do. And I would highly encourage, this is a little bit off topic, but I would highly encourage everyone here to journal every day. Write out in longhand, not on a computer, not on your iPhone, not on your Android. Write it out in longhand if you all know how to write longhand. I know I'm a lot older than everybody here, but writing something out with a pen on paper helps your brain to process your thoughts in a very different way. Google it, do mind mapping, all those kinds of tools are fantastic. But I think that the biggest thing is to think about what you want, to think about what that path looks like for you. Because if somebody had said to me 40 years ago, you're gonna live in San Francisco. You're gonna own a building. You're gonna have all these businesses. I'll be like, you're out of your mind. I'm going to work for an advertising agency and get a gold watch when I retire. You know, I mean, I never wanted to work for myself. I never had a plan to work for myself. I certainly never had a plan to have a single business, let alone all these other things that I do.
Yeah, that's similar to how I was thinking life when I graduated from college 15 years ago, because my mother to that point had spent 25 years at IBM. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I could do that. Maybe I should do that too, because that's the only thing I know.
Well,
And the
25 years
first,
somewhere, not maybe not IBM, but
yeah.
you get a good job and you stay there. But
And
like,
now, I mean, I have a cool job. I do multiple projects at once that make me wonder when I ever have time to sleep. And I get to run this enormously cool side hustle where I get to meet amazing people. Like I'm just reading the comments as you talk, and I think there's so much really, really great insight in there too. Can I take a can I ask you a question from one of our attendees?
of course, of course.
So, how do you handle the very common situation where you do offer something to someone and do so gladly, yet realize over time that the vast majority of the people you interact with never return that favor? Is that just the way many people are, or might be caused by the giver doing something not quite right? What do you think about that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the giver being incorrect or wrong. I think that and I'll tell you a quick story. I think there's a lot of people out there unable to receive. You
Hmm.
remember earlier when I was talking about my give for, and I said give of money. Okay.
Yeah.
So my habit, I think you might know this, is that every time I go into a Starbucks, and I don't drink coffee, I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, but I'll go get a hot tea or something when I'm traveling and get a croissant in the morning or whatever. And in fact, I was just in LA last weekend and I went to a Starbucks, I think every day just to get tea. I think maybe I'm addicted. I don't know. But anyway, I always turn around in line. I don't care who it is to the person behind me. Sometimes it's a family, sometimes it's a single person. And I say, what can I get you? What would you like? And first of all, that just throws people completely off balance because people are like, "Oh no, no, I'm fine. I was just going to get a whatever." I'm like, "Tell me what it is, and I'll get it for you." So their first reaction oftentimes is what? Why?
Defensiveness.
Well, it's why.
Because because people
Why would you
expect
do that
that
for me? You
next
don't
thing,
know me.
yeah.
You're a stranger. That's dumb. No, I'm fine. Okay. So I'm like, no, and I'll get it. And so sometimes there'll be a little child there with the mom or the dad, and I'll be like, yeah, whatever you both want, I'll get it for you. So I I've probably done this 100 times. I mean, what is that off my? There's no. I mean, what, $5, $10? I don't care. I've done it for. There's a one guy in there in New Jersey. I was in New York. I just got into New York, and he wasn't begging for money from anyone, by the way, but he was ragged clothing and he was counting out pennies and nickels and stuff on the counter, where you pour your cream and your napkins and all that stuff. And I said, do you have enough? And he goes, I don't think I do. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll get you whatever you want. Come on, follow me. And he goes, and so I got it for him. And the people looked a little perturbed at the counter. Maybe he does that every day. I don't know, but I don't care. I don't have any judgment about anybody. And I sat down and I was drinking my tea, and he got his stuff, and he had ordered something that took a little longer than my tea. And he comes over to me and he had tears in his eyes and he said, why would you do that for me? You don't know me. And I said, now I do. What's your name? And he says, nobody ever does that for me. And he goes, I live on the street. I don't have any money. That's just like, I'll put a little cup out or something, and people throw nickels or dimes in there. And I said, well, then maybe today you don't have to do that and you can save your nickels and dimes. It didn't have to turn into any story. It didn't have to turn into rejection. It didn't have to turn into what a lot of us do, which is get the fuck out of my face. It's a reality, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. You're not my kind. I don't have any time for this. I'm too busy, whatever. Okay. And and then a couple weeks later, I think I was at the same Starbucks and a woman and her daughter came in. I said, let me get you whatever you want. I'm going to get you whatever you want. And she goes, do I look like I don't need anything from you. Why would you do that? And I said, I'm not making a judgment that you need anything from me. I'm just trying to be nice. So if you would like something, I'll buy you whatever you want. It's just a thing I do. And she literally turned around and walked out the door. She left the line. And I'm
We
like,
live in cynical times, as
we
Elise
definitely
says in
live
one
in cynical
webinar show.
times. But but how sad is that we're in a time where we're not even able to accept kindness, you know? And all of this applies to networking because it's the same, it's always kindness. It's always relationship. It's always kindness. We're not on this planet alone yet. Soon AI will take over and we won't have to talk to anybody. But for right now, somebody's got to program this stuff that goes into AI. Somebody has to put in the prompts and everything else. So for now, how about we just be nice to each other and not worry about what we're going to get, but what we can do to help. And
Yeah.
so, for the shy people out there, take a buddy. I don't know. But don't I think that the problem with shyness, or the problem with, how many people grew up in schools where you had the cliques, you know? Oh,
I think
there's
everybody did.
those
Yeah.
are the jocks, and those are the freaks, and those are the whatevers, and those are the guys that smoked out back, and they all hung out together, and then you were just like left out, or you didn't really have a clique, or you didn't really have a group. And I remember, God, I thought you were there, Albert. Maybe you weren't. There was a woman who used to do, it was like a speed dating networking thing here in San Francisco. Anyway, I went because I'm single, terminally. And I went in, and of course, I'll talk to anybody, right? Well, I swear to God. So, what they did is they gave everybody a card with a famous person on it. And I think mine was Julius Caesar. And then you had to go around and you had to ask questions of the other people, men or women, that you wanted to meet, and you had to ask them questions. Oh, are you a famous this? Are you an actor? Are you a politician? Are you whatever, a mechanic, whatever it was, right? And I look around, and there's probably 100 people in the room, and there's about 6 or 7 people in the middle of the room kind of talking and playing the game. And then I look over, and it's like this wall on this side, and there was a lot of tech people there, were all these like young guys that were like, I don't know, 22 to 30. And they were just talking to each other, but they weren't playing the game. They were just like backs against the wall. I look at the other side, and all the girls were on the other side the same way. And I was just like, all right, everybody. It wasn't even my event, and I probably shouldn't have done this, but I was like, everybody, get off the walls. If your butt is touching the wall, get into the middle of the room and start playing the game. This isn't a school dance.
Yeah.
And the woman who was running it came over, and she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. I couldn't get anybody to participate. And I never did find who was Julius Caesar's partner. But who would that have been?
I don't know.
I
Brutus?
don't know. I don't know history that
But then
well.
Brutus would have stabbed you in the back, right? Because that's what happens to Julius Caesar.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that did happen that night. I don't remember. Anyway, but
Yeah.
but if you're
So,
shy, take a friend. If you're not sure about how to start a conversation, or you see those clicks happening,
yeah.
just go and say, "Hi, I'm Mark. I don't really know anybody here, but I'd love to meet all of you. What's the harm in that? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Do you think they're all going to turn their backs on you and reject you? And what's the worst thing that can happen if they do? You go over to the next group and say hello, and
Yeah.
maybe you meet somebody cool.
Yeah. And I mean, someone writes in here perfectly. As a shy person, I would be glad for someone to just come up to me to talk. So the inverse would be true too. I think, going up to somebody. And so I think the next question that I had for you from the audience that was actually really interesting that I wanted to say for later was there's that popular saying that your network is your net worth. Networking becomes even more vital when the job market is weak, like right now. It can open doors that resumes alone can't. But in the age of AI, one has to wonder, how long will human networks retain their power? When, if ever, will that begin to change? So, like, I don't know how much AI you use in your day-to-day life, Mark. I know we here at Albert's List, we
Zero.
host at least 2 to 3 webinars a month on how to use AI in a certain context, whether it's preparing for your job search or learning how to follow up with someone you just networked with. Do
And
you
all the
think AI is going to replace human connection? Because it certainly seems like that some
no,
days.
AI is
No.
not going to replace human connection, but AI may replace a lot of types of jobs. And
Yeah.
so, doesn't it make sense that you would want to become diverse in your career, um, more rounded, more valuable to me if you do more things? A, B, um, AI, I was at, was it, I don't know where I was. It was a thing on resume writing and AI and resume writing. And I'm like,
Hmm.
do not use, I'm sorry, do not use AI to write your resume. If you have, throw it out and start over because it all sounds like AI and it's not going to be authentic. And when you're asked the questions, since it did not come out of you, you're not going to know how to answer those questions. So, I do your research and have a personality and look at the person that you're interviewing with, for Christ's sake. Do you know how many people come in here and they like I look at a lot of portfolios, for instance, and they're like, well, and I did this and I did this, and oh, and this is I did this for this. And like they don't look at me and throw out all whole entire interview. And I'm like, well, I'm up here. Talk to me. I'm the one that's potentially going to hire you. I want to get to know you. Let's talk. Now, I know I've never interviewed for an AI, or I'm sorry, I've never interviewed for a tech job, in all fairness.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would even do, and I would not get hired.
You
But
agree to make a great salesperson or a customer success person, I think.
yeah, but no, I don't want to do that. No, I want
Yeah.
to do what I love. I want to create. I want to make things,
You
like
could
we,
be a great creative director for one of these
well,
boring, dull tech companies.
I turned down 6 years ago, I turned down being the global creative director for Nike.
Yeah.
Oh, they're like, it's $350,000 a year, but you have to move to Portland. And I'm like, no, no, I don't want to do that. And I
Yeah.
turned down being creative director for Hallmark Cards, and they're like, you have to move back to Kansas City. I'm like, no, I'm not moving back to Kansas City. So, I would be wealthy if I had done some of these things,
Yeah.
but that's not my driver.
You're true to yourself.
Well, I'm true to what I need to do so that I can sleep well at night and wake up in the morning refreshed and energized and love what I do for a living. I mean, we're only here, all of us here. What are we here? 60, 70, 80, 90 years? I don't know. I mean, I'm 67 years old. So, and I've got so much stuff that I'm working on and so much stuff that I want to work on. And my next film is finally starting to get some steam again, which is great. The wheels fell off of it during the fundraising during the pandemic, but I still have my principal cast and they're still, we're still trying to get the final script finished and then, raising money and blah, blah, blah. And, I love that. I mean, and what I realized is that, you know, I was married for 20 years and Gretchen, she passed away from liver cancer in 2015. And uh, it was just horrible, horrible what she went through. And before she died, she said to me, and I thought that this was, I mean, she was so intuitive and she said to me, she goes, I always feel like you're chasing something. And I always feel like you're just like whatever you get is kind of not enough. It's not satisfying you and whatever it is you want. And she goes, and whatever it is you're chasing, I hope you find it. And she goes, but I just want you to know that I care about you and I love you and I notice that. And I hope that you can find a peace in that, whatever it is that you're looking for. And whatever it is you appear to be searching for all the time. And I really took that to heart and I started thinking about it. And before she died, I said, I mean, this was months before she died. And we didn't even know if it was terminal at that point. And I was in her office one day. We worked together. We ran our businesses together. And I said, I thought a lot about what you said a few months ago. And she goes, yeah. And I said, you know what it is for me? It's the thrill of the hunt. It's the making of things. I'm never happier than when I'm making something. And then
Mhm.
she looked at me and she laughed and she goes, that's why you like to vacuum so much. I was like, oh, maybe it is. Because like there's nothing more satisfying to me than vacuuming a dirty rug.
Yeah.
All the stuff I have to do, and I'll be like, that rug needs vacuuming, and I think I'm going to go do it. And then it's done and it looks great. And I'm just like, oh, that's so satisfying to me. And that's the same feeling. It's exactly the same feeling I get as to when I'm making something. And so
Mhm.
I encourage the listeners here to think about how do you start your projects? What are you dreaming of doing? There's so many people like, one of the questions that we ask, or that if I have time, it's called the fifth question at the Art of Active Networking. And it's, I've always wanted to dot, dot, dot. What have you always wanted to do? Oh, I've always wanted to learn to make bread. Go learn to make bread. I've always wanted to climb Mount Everest. How about making plans to go climb Mount Everest? I've always wanted to travel to New York. I've always wanted to travel to Italy. I've always wanted to whatever it
I've
is.
always wanted to celebrate New Year's Eve twice in one night. I'm going to be doing that at the end of this year.
There you go. But so many people, I always say, they always say, I've always wanted to. Nobody has any trouble answering that question.
Yep.
But what happens right after that is they say, I've always wanted to, but, and then
Mm.
say you get your big butts in the way. And the same thing happens when we are interviewing, when we are trying to find a job, because our insecurities creep in. Well, I don't know that I'm qualified for that job. I don't know that I'm going to like that job. I don't know that that job pays me enough. Yet this is all coming from an unemployed voice, or a voice that is unsatisfied with what they're doing in some way, or they wouldn't be looking for a job. Yes. So don't let your big butts get in the way, you know,
Yeah.
live a passionate purpose, and thanks, Edward. Edward said, hey, 67 is still young when we look at the age of those who are running this country.
So just to take it back to some structure here, right? We're talking
Yes,
about, I think, networking in this uncertain market today. I
yes.
think if we've covered all the lessons that you've shared and the wonderful stories that you've been at, that you've also told, what would you say are some of the biggest, I think, pieces of advice that come out of that, that an individual looking for a job in this particular market should take on as they go out and look for their next job? Or let's just say, right, it's Thursday night, it's almost 6 o'clock in the West Coast here. There are people who are all around the world who are watching this. And let's say you're about to go to a networking event tonight, or you're going to a networking event this weekend. How should they approach that networking event differently than how they have been approaching it, based
Go
on what
in.
we've been saying?
I will tell you what I do. That's
Hmm.
all I can do. I can't tell people what to do. I can only tell you what has worked for me. Sorry, the sun's coming down and now it's coming in here, so I have to keep adjusting. Um, Make a promise with yourself that you're personally going to go up and introduce yourself to everybody in the room,
Okay.
even if they're little cliques or groups. Interrupt, say hello, say, hey, I don't, whatever the excuse you want to use to open up that door. I don't know a lot of people here. I want to meet more people. Can I introduce myself to all of you? Really simple. Okay. So go say hello. Number one. Number two is, whatever you want to say about yourself. I would be, for me, it'd be like, I do a lot of stuff. I don't really need anything right now, but I would like to meet more people. And can you tell me a little bit about you and what you're looking for here? Start the conversation, but make it a conversation, don't turn people that you meet into targets. You know,
Yeah.
so, if I walk up to you, I'm not going to say, what do you do for a living? I don't care. I'm not going to say, what can I sell to you? I don't care. I'm going to say, who are you? Tell me more about you. Why are you here tonight? What brought you here tonight? I say that a lot. What brought you here tonight? Because that's a great conversation starter. It's kind of hard to say, turn and walk away from you. And
Yeah.
if somebody does walk away from you, that's okay. Because like I said at the Starbucks, not everybody's able to receive. Not everybody is able to even have that conversation. And keep in mind that most of these people are in exactly the same boat as you, or they wouldn't be there. People who have, other than my own networking event, I'm going to a big event tonight in San Francisco only because the woman who runs it is somebody that I've been wanting to meet and that I appreciate the way she shows up. It's called Make It Marico, and it's over at the Filipino Cultural Center. And I'm going to go in and just say hello. Tonight's kind of like their grand opening of this new thing. I don't know who I mean, I usually know people when I do anything in San Francisco because I'm been here so long, but I don't know who's going to be there. And I'm just going to go over and introduce myself and say hello. And, I mean, I'm fortunate in that when I say the box SF, people know it now, I mean, 200,000 people have come here. So I inevitably meet somebody who goes, oh, I've been there. Oh my God, your place is so cool. Well, whatever. But I don't let anybody intimidate me. And I think that insecurity that somebody mentioned, or that shyness that somebody mentioned, is a massive factor. And I just think that, I think that back when I wasn't as effusious as I am now, let's just say, I think apparently we're having a concert. But before, way back in the start of my career, I mean, I used to, when I had to get on stage, I just sweat through my suit and my shirt and everything. Oh my God, I couldn't even stand being in front of people. But that changed for me because I realized that if I know what I'm talking about and I know who I am, then everything's going to be fine. And you have to keep in mind, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I go up and talk to this person? They might walk away. They might not be interested. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. I doubt anybody's going to turn around and just punch you in the teeth. So I always say that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And
Hmm.
it's the one thing that holds us back more than anything at a
Face
networking.
everything and rise. That's my favorite acronym of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. False evidence appearing real. You think that that person's going to hurt you? Probably not. Then go talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, it's this is about you. This is about what you want to take and what you want to take away from it. So go love it. Have fun with it. Enjoy the experience. And when you go into that interview, use that same attitude because I mean, you can smell fear on somebody. I can smell fear on somebody in 2 seconds, and I'll be like, "Are you nervous? Are you afraid of me?" And people have said to me so often, "Oh my God, you're so intimidating." And I'm like, "Am I intimidating you, or are you intimidated by me?" And if you're intimidated by me, there's nothing that I can do about that. But if I'm intimidating you, I apologize because I genuinely did not intend to do that. Um, And I think a lot of people have that exact direct experience. And I think that it's important to understand the difference. You know,
Hmm. And how
so
would you apply some of these things? Because there's some of these questions here to like LinkedIn, right? We're in the digital world. People are trying to network on LinkedIn. Is there any sort of approach that you take to that as well?
uh, I would suggest that anybody that goes to my LinkedIn, go read the very first sentence in my profile,
Yeah.
where I basically say, I'm not here for bullshit. And if you try to sell me something, you're probably going to get blocked.
Yeah.
I'm serious
Yeah.
because I think LinkedIn is useless. It's just
Yeah.
I've never gotten a piece of business off of LinkedIn. It's always somebody trying to sell me something. I don't have a lot of room for it. So I'll connect. I connect there with my clients and people who I like and who are doing things that I think are interesting. But for the most part, I don't think anybody even. I don't even know if people really use LinkedIn unless they're just doing a job search. And since
Yeah.
I don't search for jobs. I did put last time I hired somebody. I think we put an ad on LinkedIn. I got 75 resumes and only four of them were for the job I actually posted. I
Yeah.
got
There's a lot
network, I
of,
got I got network engineers and healthcare people and people who work in every possible industry that I have nothing to do with, and they just saw a job posting and sent their resume in. And I'm looking and I'm like, and I went through every one. I'm like, I don't understand why you applied for this. What am I missing here? Oh, I think I'd be great at that. And I'd be like, well, I think that's fine, but I mean, I probably also want some relevant experience. And I
yeah.
put in my job posting, it was you need to be proficient in, for me, in this case, Adobe Creative Suite and social media. And
Yeah.
very few people, oh yeah, I've done social media. I think I did a TikTok video that got 300 views. No, that's not proficiency in social media. So,
Yeah.
um, so but I also, and this is also important, I never say never. And I think that that's different than in tech companies. I know that most tech companies, that hiring manager probably has somebody that works for them who is sorting those resumes before they even get to the hiring manager. And most of you are not even going to be seen by the hiring manager. They're
Yeah.
going to, because you have to keep in mind, if it's a bigger company, they're getting 5, 6, 700 or more resumes for one position, and they're hiring one person. I mean, and I've
Yeah.
experienced that because when I do a casting for a shoot, I'm like, I know that I need 80 people for a background on a photo shoot, for instance. I'll get 1,000 people applying just to be in the background. It pays nothing or very little. And if we're casting for a film, there's an old adage in the film business that says it takes 20 years to become an overnight success. Same thing in most businesses. All the famous people that now weren't famous 20, 30 years ago. They were doing soap ads and hoping that they could break in somehow. And some of them broke in and that cream rises. But Same in the music industry, same in the other industries, whatever you follow, same in the tech industry. We host tons of tech events here, and we've had the who's who of the tech world here. We just had the RSA conference, the biggest security conference in the world. And man, the people are
And
like,
you've done live videos with Snoop Dogg, so yeah.
yeah, Snoop's good. Snoop's a good guy. I like Snoop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But but it's not about, I mean, Snoop puts his underwear on the same as everybody else, people who you see that are famous or in the tech world or otherwise, everybody's still human. And so I keep going back to be kind, be helpful, be human. I mean, Snoop was here for what, 8 hours? And you know that the best part of the entire conversation we had was when we started talking about STEM education.
Hmm.
And he's big in STEM. And I said, well, I think the problem with STEM is that it should be STEAM because it's missing the arts. And
And what did he say?
he said, that's brilliant. And you're right. He goes, we need to start getting the arts into everything because we all know that arts, if you have arts and background and arts training, that's going to, it's going to make you more valuable to any company you work with, you know?
Yeah, very true. So we're a little bit past the top of the hour. I think if anyone has any remaining questions, Mark is available on LinkedIn and he could try and stick a Q&A here at the very end. But I wanted to
You know
talk
what?
a little
Also,
bit.
what I'll tell you what I do respond to all the time is I have
Yes.
9 Instagrams, and the 3 primary Instagrams are the Box SF Mercantile, the Box SF Events, and the Box SF Festivals. I check those messages every day. So,
Okay. So go ahead and find Mark on one of his three of his nine Instagrams. Your odds of being successful are 1 in 3.
well, and,
Um,
and the Art of Active Networking, of course. I mean, if anybody
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
go to the artofactivenetworking.com and minimally sign up for my email list. I mean, right now I'm only doing the events in San Francisco, but I was doing them in 17 cities pre-pandemic, and I want to build it back up. And I just stopped doing everything, of course. And now I'm ready to start taking it back on the road again. And so if I can find the right partners in the right cities and the right places to bring it and the right conferences, then I'm all in. I'm ready to do it. So I fly a lot anyway. So
Yeah.
you're going to see
And
me
I was
some
just about to say, you're about to have an Art of Active Networking event on Monday. There's 43 people
night.
here,
Yeah,
many of whom are in the Bay Area and
if
many
you're,
of
if
whom are
you're in the
job
Bay Area,
searching.
if you're in the Bay Area, go online and buy a ticket. It's $20 to attend. I promise you, it'll be the best networking event you've ever attended. And that's not to say it's going to be the biggest networking event you've ever attended, because in this particular case, size doesn't matter.
Look at
Um,
that. One of your past interviewees is in the comments section tonight.
who's that?
Elise
Elise, what's her last name? I'm not.
Campo. It's the latest comment that's at 6:05 here. Mark, really good to see you. I was one of your interviewees years ago.
Oh, Elise, sorry. I hope I was nice to you.
So yeah,
Uh,
you have the Art of Active Networking going on Monday as well as your arts
and
fair.
anybody that's in the Bay Area, we have a free, beautiful art fair here. We get 400 to 800
Yeah,
people weekend, and it's this weekend, and it's free. Come by and say hi. Introduce yourself.
yeah. So the artofactivenetworking.com. Tickets are available on Monday. Do you have any, I guess, what is it? It's free for people who've served in the military.
$20 to attend, $50 if you want to promote your business and have a table, um, $12 if you're a student with a valid ID. And if you served in the US military, it is free with your military ID. And thank you
Oh,
for your,
wonderful.
yeah.
And anything for job seekers?
No, because you got
No.
to make an investment in your career, and I lose my ass on them anyway. So, no, I will promise you we'll meet everybody in the room, and I'll make sure of it though.
Awesome, wonderful. So with that said, any final thoughts to leave people off with here on a Thursday evening? Any final thoughts? What did one of our cameras freeze? Uh-oh.
Well, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, I was just saying,
No,
any
no,
final
I thought you
any
meant, I thought you were asking the chat thing. I
Oh
don't
no,
have
I was asking
no.
you for any final last thoughts
Yeah,
before I wrap it
I'm
up.
out of thoughts.
You're out of thoughts? Okay, well, I want to thank you then for spending your hour
Absolutely.
plus with me today.
Always
And
happy to help in any way you can. You know that. And let me
yeah,
know when you come up. We need to go have lunch. Okay.
we do. We'll go to Zuni Cafe if they're still open. I don't know if they
We'll
are,
go.
but
Zuni's still open. We'll either go to Zuni or we'll go eat dim sum at Yang Sing.
Oh gosh, yes. I would love that opportunity.
All
And we'll
right.
we'll do this again in a couple of months for your next event and
Okay.
really talk to people. So,
All right. Thank you
um
for listening. I appreciate you all. Thanks, Albert, for
yeah.
having me on. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And we've
All right.
got lots of other events coming up, so check
Yep.
those out on our Eventbrite page, and we'll be sending the recording, and we hope to see you all soon. Thanks
All right.
again, Mark, and best of luck with your event this weekend.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.